This time on Ask Rad Rat, we're talking about who would win in a all-out brawl at the skate park. Would it be skateboarders, BMXers, scooterers, or rollerbladers? Let's figure it out. Welcome back to Rad Rat Video Channel, where I talk about skateboarding in all of its forms, and I answer your questions here on this series, Ask Rad Rat. Got a handful of questions for you today. First one is from a guy named Jizza, who says, what's the difference between a hospital flip and a Casper flip? Who deserves the title and what should it be called? Is it because the different technique that defines the trick? Yes, so I do have a video on who invented it, if that's the question you're going for. There were a couple of guys who did a lot of really good stuff with it. Masahiro Fuji, I believe it was in '88, who was doing all kinds of different kinds, like the big spin version, which is called an alpha flip. He was doing that kind of stuff at the time, and I assume that he invented it until someone showed me a clip of Rodney Mullen, of course, who happened to do one at like a demo or something, and it's like in the background of a clip. It's not even in like a skate video that he's in. Yeah, it's interesting. Check that out if you want the whole story, or I'll show it on video. I might have had to do like several corrections of that one because it took quite a bit of research to figure out who was the first person to do a Casper flip. But yeah, so the difference between a Casper flip and a hospital flip is, in my opinion, minor, and I don't think it really matters. So if you were to do a Casper, right? If you were to kick flip into a Casper, you can do it without a kick flip. But if you popped a half kick flip, caught your back foot on the tail, your front foot is on the grip tape, and you land like that, right? And you do a shove it half flip. Now you do that all in the air at the same time. Half flip, catch it Casper, shove it out right before you land. That's a Casper flip. I used to do those all the time. It was one of my favorite tricks. Eventually I couldn't do it. It just stopped making sense in my head. I couldn't get the timing right. I don't know why, but I lost the trick. I haven't really been able to do it in a long time. But I learned how to do hospital flips switch, which is a little bit different, and I'll show that to you. So with this one, you do the half kick flip, and then you catch it with your front foot and pull it around, and your back foot does nothing. So it's very similar. The board does the same thing in both tricks, but it's just the exact technique you use to do it. So both versions are like a half of an opposite front foot impossible, right? So like with a normal front foot impossible, the board spins front side. It flips kind of like a heel flip, not much, just enough to kind of wrap your foot around it. With a hospital flip, you're doing a part of a kick flip, usually a quarter, but technically it's a half. Kind of like a quarter kick flip, then you start to pull it around backside, but you land it halfway through. It's kind of like the opposite of a front foot impossible that way, but the board does the same thing both ways. And I consider them the same trick. Personally, I don't care. If I were to do one in a game of skate and someone matched with the opposite version, I don't care. It's fine. And the reason why is because I could only Casper flip normal and I could only hospital flip switch. And to me, they felt like the same trick. And for me, the reason was I always have my weight on my right foot, which is a problem for certain types of tricks. But when I'm skating in my normal stance, I can scoop that back foot, no problem. In switch, all my weight is on my front foot. So I start to flip, and my weight is all like on the board on this right foot. To actually try to scoop with my back foot, it doesn't feel right. But with my weight on my right foot, which is my front foot in switch, I can just pull the board around just fine. So to me, it feels like the same type of trick. If you want to learn it, I do have a video right here on hospital flips that you can check those out. As far as the name, I do remember on like back in the day in the forums what they were talking about, like the technical perfect hospital flip would be like you do a half kick flip and then straight up, like that is how you would do it. So halfway through the board is up and down, and you could get credit carded on it. So you might end up in the hospital doing that trick. That's what I learned that the name means, but take that with a grain of salt. So yeah, to me it's the same trick, but technically the technique is different. Okay, Jimbo asks, I'm trying to get my niece into skating because she saw me do it and she thought it was interesting. The problem is she's 3 years old and I'm not sure when the proper time is to teach a kid that young how to skate. So far she can do things like kick turns in the carpet on her carpet board and stuff. But when is the proper time to get her padded up and roll on some concrete? Okay, so I'm not a parent. don't take any advice I have about kids. But the youngest kids I know who skate are 5 and 6, and the kid who's 6, he can drop in on like the big bank at the skate park, drop in, get some speed, and like turn around and cruise and all that kind of stuff. I've mentioned him before on the channel because he doesn't know what stances are. He doesn't understand. He just hops on the board depending on where his feet are. He'll, like if you were to like jump off something, you probably don't line it up so you jump off the right foot. You just jump off of whichever foot happens to be on the ground at the time. That's kind of how he skates. Like if he's walking up to his board, he'll just put on whichever foot comes next, and he'll just switch stances like nothing. He doesn't care. But he's 6. That's a big difference between 3 and 6. But if she can handle it, like I would give it a try. I wouldn't hold her back because you don't think it's the right time yet. If you try it and it's a disaster, then sure. But to me, like, you can be like, there's a girl who's like 9 years old and she could heel flip downstairs and do all kinds of stuff. You don't get that way without starting really, really young. So I don't know. I would say try it. If she gets hurt, she won't remember. It's fine. Again, don't take any of my advice. Okay, the next question is from Mikey, who says, how do pro skaters, this is an interesting one. How do pro skaters exist in the Tony Hawk video game universe? In Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, the character Useless Dave makes remarks such as, I haven't seen someone that dialed in since that Rodney versus Day One video. If that video really existed in their universe, why would they be impressed by it? Rodney and Day One's tricks would probably seem elementary to them. Maybe the video exists, but is Tony Hawkified, considering at the end of the game you film a video part with ridiculous tricks. Side note, Useless Dave also talks about the Pro Skater games. So the Pro Skater games exist in the Tony Hawk world. So would that be like their Session or Skater XL because it is realistic for them? At what point did the game start being real? Did Useless Dave also play Thug 2? Or was that an actual event? My head hurts. Okay, I'm going to try to figure this out. So yeah, in Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, I haven't played it in a while. I am planning on doing my zero stat run pretty soon. It might be incredibly soon. It depends on when this goes up and when I have time to actually do it. Work has been catastrophically bad lately. But yeah, there's like the skate nerd guy who knows all the stuff, and he brings up real life stuff all the time. So yeah, how does that make sense in the Tony Hawk world? And I've thought about it. So in Thug 2, I'm assuming Thug 1, Thug 2, and Thaw are all in the same world. Okay? And in Thug 2, you can go to an arcade and try to play a game and get a high score. So I'm assuming that the Pro Skater games exist as games in that world. Okay, so I don't think Thug 1 or 2 was a game in the American Wasteland world. I think the Pro Skater games are games in that world. Okay, and it's like an arcade. Now, the weird thing is, when you play an arcade in Thug 2, you're playing in the city that you're actually in right now. So you walk up to the arcade and you play, and you're like grinding behind yourself as you're playing it. But keep in mind how different the world is in Tony Hawk. Your average person can jump like 12 feet high on the ground. So obviously the physics are all different, and the way that video games could be developed and created, obviously there's some difference in technology there. So let's just go with that. So yeah, I'm saying that in the Thug and in American Wasteland worlds, the Pro Skater games exist. Now, as far as video parts, that's a complicated one, because you do film in the first Thug. There are quite a few challenges where you're recording stuff. So in that game, you go to Vancouver where you're about to show off your team. Well, no, you go to the contest and then there's a premiere right then. And like the day before the premiere of the video you're working on, you're filming. And the stuff you film doesn't make any sense because it's missions where you're learning how to play the game. So it'd be like, do a nollie on flat 5 times, and you're filming during that. So like there's a clip in the video that's just a nollie 5 times. That doesn't make any sense. But you've also got the helicopter McTwist as a clip in the video that comes out. So my assumption is all of the video parts in the game, I'm assuming you doing flat ground nollies is like for the credits or something, and you as the player don't know that there's other stuff going on in the background. Like, you also film you doing freestyle while someone skates vert, so you're just like a background feature for this clip. So maybe you recording nollies is like because there's a homeless guy doing something funny over there and we just need you to do something. So my assumption is this: all of the skate videos in the video parts in that world are Tony Hawk level combos. So every part is one combo, because if not, every part would be like an hour long, right? So everyone does their 1 million point combo on film, and that's their whole part. That's my thought about that. And the reason why we see, when you beat the game, we see normal skateboarding is just the way it translates into our world. So the Tony Hawk world, it's not our actual world, right? It's a multiversal parallel world. And in that world, physics is different, but all the real life people still exist over there. So when we play the game, we're tapping into that world. And as the footage translates into our world, it has to convert into real life, this Earth physics. And that's why it's normal footage. That's my thought on that. As I play that game more, I will keep an eye on that guy and try to figure it out a little bit more. But yeah, that's it for now. The next question is from L Spooks. I have an interesting question. Let's say, hypothetically, there's a massive skate park and it's filled to the brim with skaters, BMXers, scooter riders, and screw it, even rollerbladers. Now, this park is big enough where there's an equal amount in all of these factions, and suddenly a war breaks out between all of them. And now we all have to use our strengths and preferred sports equipment to wage a melee combat battle royale to claim the park as theirs. So who do you think would win? How would they use their abilities to their advantage? Would skaters use their boards as shields against scooters? Will the BMXers try to kick the bladers in the side of the knee to drop them quick? I think it's a toss-up between BMXers and skaters. Okay. Interesting question. I have to picture this. So you say there's equal factions in each group. Because if there weren't, it would be between scooters and skateboarders. Because scooter kids, they're kids, but there's a ton of them, right? But there's all in equal amount. So I think scooter kids are out. They have the best thing to hit someone with, like a metal scooter. I think you could really do some damage with that, but most scooterers I've seen are like 12 and under. So as far as a melee combat thing, I don't think that the scooterers are going to have much of a chance. The bladers, I don't think either, because having blades on is not an advantage in any way. If you try to actually get in like a fist fight with someone and you're on wheels, that's not going to do you much good. You're more likely to break your ankle. You can't go in the grass and like get around and flank anybody and make strategy or anything like that because your wheels can't roll in the grass. You could take them off, but then you're barefoot, which leaves you at a disadvantage compared to everyone else who does have shoes on. So yeah, I think the bladers and the scooterers are both out for those reasons. But the skaters and the BMXers, that's where the real toss-up is going to be. And I'm trying not to just say skateboarders for the sake of it being a skateboarding channel, but I feel like skateboarders have a pretty good chance. So skateboards are a decent thing to hit someone with. You have the axle with a nut on the end that can do a little damage. The other side is all grip tape. Getting slapped in the face with grip tape is going to do some real damage too. That's pretty good, and there's not a lot of downsides to it. With the BMX bike though, you got the advantage of moving around more. If it was an actual like a war and you had a headquarters, like an outpost, and you had like different bikers going around and figuring out things and flanking from different angles and trying to make strategy and stuff like that, they would have an advantage in being able to move more. But they don't have much of a weapon. You can't like pick up your whole bike and hit someone with it. You can, but like that's really clunky. That seems like it wouldn't be that hard to avoid. They could try to ride real fast and punch someone as they're riding, but they also run the risk of, you know, like getting something through their spokes or being knocked off as they're going real fast. So they're more likely to do some extra damage, but they're more likely to get hurt, I would say, too. So the other big thing is skateboarders could make like a you know, like if you're going to charge and you've got like the line, all the skaters could be pretty close with their boards. If you're all on a bike, you got to be more spread out. So I think that makes you a little less stable too. If you got like a really tight group of skaters all in a circle, all facing outward with their boards, versus all the BMXers with all their gaps and everything, I feel like skaters would have a really good chance at winning that battle. So skaters and BMXers are both old enough to. That's kind of the thing. So like scooterers are kids. Everyone else I think would average about the same age, right? So I don't think you have much of an advantage that way. Bikers might be a little older, right? Because I don't see as many now. I think that used to be more popular than it is now. So skaters are going to have more young people and more in the middle, and the bikers are going to have more older people. But that could be good and bad, because you could have more strategy that way, but less vigor. So I don't know. I'm going to say skateboarders because there's not a lot of disadvantages to it, and you have a really good thing to hit people with. Yeah. So if each faction, now this is to assume this, you have to assume that you can't pick up a scooter after the kid gets taken out, because if everyone just had scooters, then it's a toss up. Because I think we would all turn, all other three groups would focus on the scooterers first because they're scooterers, right? And then after that, then the actual battle would begin. And then we'd all have scooters as weapons. So that makes things a little bit more complicated. If you were on a bike and you had a scooter you could like grab by the handle and like swing around and hit someone with, that would be real dangerous. So if you're allowed to loot the corpses of the children, then I think the BMXers might actually have an advantage there. Because for skateboarders, it's not that big of a step up. We already got the skateboard. So man, I'm thinking maybe the BMXers might have an edge on us there, but we're at least getting second. So that's my thoughts on that weird question. I enjoy thinking out these really stupid things. Sorry about my Facebook Messenger being on. But yeah, that's it for now. If you have any more questions, go to radratvideo.com and submit them there. You can also submit them through Patreon if you want to support the channel that way. I will answer you directly personally or in a video, depending on what the question is. You can also support the channel by joining here on YouTube. You can get some icons and some other stuff to post, which I think is pretty cool. So that's it for now, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.